Well, hello there. This is Lee Thurman, and you've just joined Livestream Lee. I want to welcome you today and talk a little bit about what we're going to cover and hopefully what you'll learn. But first, I want to say we have completed. So I've been doing Livestream Lee now for about 3.5 months, pretty much every day. Missed a few days. Every day at 3 o'clock. I've had probably 2 different days I forgot to schedule, and at the last minute realized that was a problem. And then I've had a couple of days where I just decided not to post. Now the first 2.5 months, I did a presentation each day of the week on a combination of topics related to business success. I teach entrepreneurship and I teach business strategy at UT Arlington, and I've been somewhat successful in life. Had the blessings of taking a company public back in the .com days. My current company, and so I want to share the benefit of the knowledge that I have with as many people as are interested in watching and learning from what I know. My current company is a technology company that is quite honestly has had some struggles getting the traction that I'd like it to get. And as I search for the solution to that particular dilemma, I think many people that have businesses will identify with the struggle to get traction. I think you can translate that into the challenge of attracting enough customers. But the struggle to get traction is almost always traced to certain things. And as I've been investigating and trying to figure out, the exact right mix, about 1.5 months ago, I came across what's called no-code application development. Now, since I'm in the technology world and we develop code, the concept of developing a software platform without code, I found really intriguing because it would speed up your development process. You would get results a lot faster, and you would have basically a lower cost. You'd get to market, you could make changes, all those things. Those are all good things. Those are things that you want. And so for the last month, I've been telling you how to build cell phone apps using a technology called Adalo.com. And the reason that I did that is sort of twofold. Number one is because if you're interested in building a cell phone or getting a cell phone app for your business, I wanted you to understand why you should not pay the kind of money that has up until now been traditionally charged for cell phone apps. And I'm going to put a little banner up, which will give you a little plug for what we do. But bottom line is I wanted to try to show you how rapid and relatively easy it is to develop very interactive applications, especially those on the cell phone. So we developed a multi-vendor marketplace application using Adalo.com. And I got to confess, I ran into a few little glitches in terms of the process because I haven't been building on Adalo for years. But I developed, and you can go back and watch the history of those episodes. I developed the app, and I think it's a pretty cool little app. And if you follow that process, you can develop an app. And if you want to have an Etsy style marketplace cell phone app, you can do that. Well, there are other technologies other than Adalo. One of them that I've come across that I'm incredibly impressed with is called Bubble.io. And it is way more sophisticated, way more powerful than Adalo.com. And you can use Bubble.io for a number of different things, one of which is you can develop a platform technology. You could develop Facebook, you could develop Twitter, you could develop Clubhouse, you could develop Instagram, you could develop Salesforce, you could develop QuickBooks. I mean, you could develop pretty much any application that you can imagine on Bubble. It's that powerful. Now, the difference between doing it on Bubble and doing it on Adalo is Bubble has a much more extensive suite of control points. And that basically means you have much more granular control over everything from the look and feel of the application to the logic that goes on behind the scenes as you try to make your application do whatever it is you want it to do. So because it's more sophisticated, it is, of course, more complicated. And I'm going to suggest that if you want to get involved in this world, that you probably would be well advised to start with Adalo because it's actually pretty simple to learn. And get some of the basics of no-code thought processes down and then move on to Bubble. Now, I'm going to show you what I'm doing on Bubble. And I'm in the process of doing a fairly significant pivot on the Apricot Rocket business. And I'm using Bubble as part of how I'm going to be implementing that pivot. Now, quite honestly, part of the pivot is really going to be related to just modeling out how I want the Apricot Rocket system to work and function. Now, we've built a platform technology using raw code. It's based on PHP. I mean, they call them LAMP stacks. Basically, the LAMP stack is LAMP stands for various components of a server installation. LAMP, L stands for Linux, A for Apache, M for MySQL, and P for PHP. A very common development code sort of environment. But the challenge is it's quite complicated. The people that develop in PHP code have to be good at what they do, and it's very time intensive. And so there's no shortcuts. You actually have to create everything raw. Whereas with Bubble, you can model things and it'll develop the code in the background. So all you have to do is model things out the way you want. It's got a very intuitive, or at least reasonable intuitive design interface and a workflow interface, and then the database behind it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you into my Bubble account, and I'm going to show you how I'm using it in the pivot process. Now, there may be a point in time when I actually implement pieces of what I'm going to be doing in the Apricot Rocket system. But right now, I'm just using it as a modeling tool, but it's a very sophisticated modeling tool. It actually allows you to build functionality in the background so that you can make sure that the processes you want to see working work. And why this is useful is when you communicate with the developers that are actually writing the code, if they can actually see exactly the processes you want and exactly the look and feel that you'd like it to have, it helps them know how you want to code something. So as a software developer, but not a coder, it helps me to communicate to my development team how I'm going to want them to have the ultimate app developed, or the ultimate app developed. So let's just go ahead and jump in and let me begin the process of showing you the Bubble system. So today we're just going to be doing basically an overview introduction. All right, so here we go. Now, what I've got up on screen is a sample of an index page, and this is a model that I'm using for how I want to redesign the Apricot Rocket website to work. And for a variety of reasons, we're doing a little bit of a brand change at the same time, Appy Rocket instead of Apricot Rocket. But the underlying system is Apricot Rocket. So let me orient you to the different major elements on this page. First of all, there's the big workspace here in the center. And then secondly, over on the left-hand side, you have basically your work areas. Down the far left side, you have at the top design. And so if you click on design, which I already have, you see your graphical workspace, and this is basically where you design your application. Then you have your workflow, which is where you tell the application what you want the various actions to do. Like when you click on a button, what do you want to have happen? When you fill in a form, what do you want to have happen? There's all those, basically this is where you connect the dots between the design elements. Then you have your database, and this is where you create data types and basically multiple different databases. Bubble has a very powerful interactive database system. I'm still kind of figuring it out, but I've got a reasonable handle on it at this point. Thank you to Adalo for helping me to understand certain fundamental concepts. Then, of course, you have styles where you can set global style elements, button colors and standard colors and things like that. So you can set styles. Plugins is really cool. Plugins, you have a massive list of third-party plugins that you can use. What you can do with plugins, many of which are free, some of which have a cost. In almost every case, the cost is very reasonable and very nominal. But what you can do with plugins will it just actually will blow your mind. It just the range of things that you can do is mind-blowing. And then settings, which is fundamental sort of setting aspects of your website. And then you have log files. Now you have log files for a variety of things. Bubble, basically, when you develop your application, Bubble is a full-time live environment. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to design and begin the process of sort of showing you some things. Now, the first thing I want to show you is as you build things in the Bubble workspace, as you design things, over at the top right, you're going to see a link that says preview. If you click on preview, what'll happen is it'll actually take you to a page where it will show you the result of what you've just designed. So you can literally keep two tabs open, one for preview and one for the design, and you can just click back and forth between them. And so as you make a change, that change shows up real time in your live system. Like for example, I'm going to go in and change the word directory to listing, and we're going to just instantly see it. So I'll come back over here to the design tab, and I'll come down to the directory. Now this is a button element. We'll come to that in just a second. But if I double click on it, you get basically a control panel that comes up that allows you to control every aspect of that particular element. There's a lot of elements, and every element has a control panel, and the control panels are extremely deep. There's a lot going on. Up here at the very top, what does you want the button to say? Well, I'm just going to change it to listing for the moment, and I click anywhere, it changes listing. Now I click on the panel and I refresh I click on the preview tab, and I refresh, and you'll see that it says listing now. So it's that easy to go interactive between your work area and your application. So you can make very real-time tweaks and changes to everything from design to work functionality. So I'm going to go ahead and change that back. Now, before I go much farther, I'm just going to show you on this particular element, which you're going to use a lot. This is a button, and you can control a lot about the button. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here on the right-hand side, and in this top field, if I click, you're going to see a little blue tab that comes up to the right. And basically, this tab is where you insert dynamic data from the database. And this is a very, very, very powerful feature of Bubble. And again, because of the way the database system works, you can actually grab a relational data field from a different database. I will explain this as I go through, but this dynamic element pops up in a lot of places where you can basically start the process of controlling things. Now, this button also has, almost every element has a workflow editor. So if you click on Start or Edit Workflow, I want you to notice over on the left-hand side, the blue highlight will move from design down to workflow. So as I click on Start Edit Workflow, now we're on the workflow for this particular page, and we're looking at the workflow for this particular button element. So there's more than one way to do a lot of things, and understanding all of the different options does take some time. But if you want the button to do something when you click on it, you use the workflow to tell the system what you want it to do. And you have lots of choices. So this is the button. There are other buttons on the page, but this button is the button for directory element. And I'm just using it as a title. Now, as I hover over the workflow panel, it shows you the look of the element underneath it. Now, I could delete the panel, in other words, remove the workflow, but if I move off of that, you'll see that I have something here I can click. This is the first step in the workflow. So if I click here, now I get a drop down, and I'm going to scroll up a little bit so you can see all of the drop down options, and you got a lot of them. So there are workflow action or workflow process sequences that you can do related to setting up an account. So you have account related workflow. These are things like signing up users and logging in and logging out and sending confirmation emails and changing passwords and all that kind of stuff. Then you have navigation. These workflow elements basically relate to moving around for the user to click on things to move around inside of your application. Then you have data. It's called things. And in the language of Bubble, a data thing is basically just any kind of data component, and there are several, that you might be storing information in either permanently or temporarily related to the workflows and or the interaction that your application has with the customer. Then, of course, you have email actions, and this is pretty simple. This is send an email, send email requested, send a meeting request by email, or install more email actions. You can install more email actions if you have applications, plugins downloaded that do certain things on email. Then you have payment related actions. Well, you have to install a payment gateway plugin. I would typically use Stripe. You have to install something that allows you to connect up to a payment gateway. Regarding analytics, you also have analytic actions, but here you also have to install analytics plugins. Analytics plugins would typically be things like charting and so on that allow you to grab data from the system, like how many times did somebody log into your application today? How many times did a specific user log into your application today? You know, how many people upgraded from plan A to plan B? All of those kinds of things. You can develop charts and graphs on a dashboard. So this is the analytics, but you have to connect it up to things. Now, another element that is very frequently used is the element actions section. And here you can do lots of different things. Now, what you can do depends upon which element you've chosen. Some elements have more and others have less in terms of the number of actions that can occur with the element. But you can do things like show, toggle, scroll, hide, animate, set states. Boy, that's a complicated one right there. You can display data, you can reset data, you can send data. There's a lot of different things that you can do. Then you have plugins related, actions related to plugins that are custom, basically unique actions for specific plugins that you've turned on. And then you have a variety of custom events. We are by no means going to try to cover all of these. This is way too much. But all of these basically represent the kinds of things that you can do in workflows. I'm going to tell you, compared to a Dalo, there's probably 10 times as many things that you can do with Bubble that you can't do with a Dalo. A Dalo is a much, much more simple no-code development tool. So again, I'm going to recommend you play with and get to learn the concepts of no code with Adalo before you move on to Bubble. Now, regarding data. Now, first thing here is there's a tab sequence up here at the top: data types, data privacy, application data, in other words, data in your data fields, and some other things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to data types because it's a little simpler screen. And on the left-hand side, you see I have a number of data types here. So I'm in the process of modeling out a business listing directory functionality. And we're actually going to be doing this on the Apricot Rocket system, but it is I'm modeling it out here. So again, I can be extremely precise to my developer. I will tell you, the more precise you are in terms of making sure that your developer understands, your code writers understand exactly what you want, the less wasted time you're going to have. So that's actually a very powerful use for Bubble, is just in that case alone, not to mention the fact that it can actually be your development platform in and of itself. But in any event, I have a data field or a data table for business industry. So if I click on this data field here, actually it's already listed, you'll see that business industry has, of course, the data field name, or the database name, it's called a data type, is called business industry. And there's only one actual field called industry name that it would exist here. We have another one for business profile. Here, this is actually where a business would insert data into the database. A business owner would insert data into the database from a form, and we would capture a lot of different information about the business. So as you can imagine, we would want to know things like what city is it in, what country is it in, what is the description of the business. Now, these data fields are organized alphabetically, just automatically. So regardless of what sequence you create them, they're going to be organized in this view alphabetically. So there's a hero image, which would be a huge background image. There's a list of images, which might be a gallery of images that you would have. There's a link to another database table called industry, where I link to the business industry. Then there's a name field, which is text, a page headline field, which is text, a phone number field, which is a number, and so on. State, city. There's a type, which connects up to the business type. There's a user, which connects up to the user. So a user creates an account, and then a user decides to create a business listing in the directory. So all business listings, all business profiles are attached to a user, right? So you have to first have the user table, then you have to have the business profile table. This is the way I'm setting things up. So there's just a lot going on here. Now, over here on types, if I click on types, you're going to see that the business type just has one field for name. So I just have business type names. There's client types, which is something else. There's CRM records, there's states, there's teams, there's users, each one of these. If you want to create a new data type, you simply create new type, and I'll call this demo. So this is a type for demo, but this could be a type for maybe hair color or hair. Okay, so it'd be color and style. So I'm going to create a database for hair. Okay, so now I've got a database, a data type called hair. If I want to create, say, hair color, I just type the word color, and in this case, it's a text field. Okay, and if I want to create another field for collecting style, okay, I can create a field for style. This would also be text, and I go ahead and create it. Now, if I want to connect hair to a person, I create a new field, and I call it user, because now I want to connect it to my user type, which I've already created, which is a default field. And so now I have user. So I'm creating a connection between a data type, a database table, between two different database tables, between the hair table and the user table. So I can actually, if I wanted to, I could now have a connection where I allow the tracking of hairstyles and hair colors that users have. And then I can do searches to see how many people are in the database that have, blonde hair or auburn hair or, yellow hair, whatever. I mean, you could, whatever colors you want to have it, and then styles, different kind of hairstyle cuts. So this is how you connect different database fields together. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this database. So I've created it. Here's my hair database. There's a little delete trash can right here. So I'm going to click on the delete trash can. So I've just removed the hair database. Now we've gone through 25 minutes and I've really just done kind of an overview of the system. I do want to cover one other thing very briefly, and then we'll do a little deeper dive again on Monday. But up here at the top of the left-hand side, you have a page, little link that you can click on. And this opens a drop-down where you have pages that you've created and or that were default provided. And then you have reusable elements. Reusable elements like the header and the footer and pop-up forms that you might have created. So what you'll do is you'll click on a page to edit a page. So I'm hovering over index. You can see a little graphic of what the index page actually looks like. If I hover over the create profile page, you can see a graphic of what it looks like. So if I wanted to edit a page, I click on the page, and now the page shows up on the right-hand side, and I have lots of different elements. And again, in the upper right-hand side, I can click on preview. Now, as I scroll up here at the top, you're going to see that the header sort of whites out and it says header. It's got a little blue placard that says header. That indicates that this is actually a predefined element that is inserted in this page. If I want to edit that element, I go over to the pages index. I come down and choose a reusable element called header, and here it is on my page. Now, not sure why I'm not seeing the word. If I click up here, Appy Rocket, okay, so why is that not showing up here? I don't know why that's not showing up. That should be showing up. Let's move this and let's just increase that. There we go. For some reason, it just shifted a little bit. And so there's my header, and I don't have to do anything specifically to save it. It automatically saves. Whenever you do something, the system automatically saves stuff for you. Now, each one of these pieces are individually elements that are fit on the page. Some of them are grouped together and some of them are individual. In this case, the page is the header. You can have all different reusable elements for different kinds of things, and then you control exactly where they go. Okay, so we're at 3:28, and we actually have really run out of time. So I'm going to come back to StreamYard, and I'm going to just basically come back and say this is an overview introduction to sort of the general work environment that Bubble provides. Monday, I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you a few of the things that I've already done, how I've positioned elements, how I've connected things up. Bottom line, there's a lot of Bubble tutorials out there. My tutorial is really going to be the tutorial of somebody that's relatively new to Bubble. I'm going to be sharing to you the stuff that I found very confusing. And, I've spent a lot of hours figuring out Bubble. I'm by no means an expert, but what I am is a new user that has a new user's perspective. And I can show you some of the things that probably will trip you up when you're trying to figure out what all these people are doing on their Bubble tutorials. And by the way, Bubble has an incredibly extensive library of video tutorials that you can use to do anything. The question just is, how much time do you want to spend learning a new technology, learning a new skill? I love this stuff. So to me, this is like playtime. But, teaching it to you also helps me to understand it. So I want to mention one thing. I'm going to close this this right here. I don't know if you can see the wonderful blue shirt, sort of the Vanna White here. And over on my shoulder, I've got my mannequin with a shirt on. Apricot Rocket, as a company, I decided to get some swag. I use that as for a variety of things, but bottom line is you might want some swag, some clothing with logos and things like that for your business. I've got a guy for you. I've got a guy that you want to know, and his name is Bob Hurt. Bob has been in the corporate clothing and apparel industry for 50 plus years. I know that's a long time. He really truly knows what he's doing. Bob's a great guy. And if you happen to need custom branded apparel, Bob is going to get you the best price and the best quality. He'll find the mix. He's very consultative. He's not at all high pressure. If you live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, he'll drive to you, show you materials. I mean, he makes it so easy. It can actually be a little bit confusing figuring out all the different options that you have. Bob's your guy. Go to livestreamly.com, click on the Bob Hurt link, and get in touch with Bob. Bob's a good guy, and he will make your life easy when it comes to getting corporate branded apparel. Bob Hurt, good guy to know. Please give him a call. All right. I hope you'll come back on Monday at 3 o'clock, where we'll have the next episode, and we'll continue the journey of introducing you to Bubble and helping you learn the fundamentals so that you can start playing with it. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you on Monday.